Hello, I'm Laura from The Butterfly Mother. Please subscribe to our channel for videos about parenting, mental health and emotional well-being. And today I'm going to be talking about the biggest mistake you can make when struggling with an anxiety disorder. Just to sum up my story really quickly, I struggled with severe anxiety and postnatal depression following the birth of my son in spring of 2013. I had really debilitating physical and emotional symptoms of anxiety, and which led to me basically not functioning at all. And eventually, through therapy, medication and a lot of self-help, some of which we're going to be talking about in this video, I have managed to make a full recovery. So today I want to talk about the biggest error you can make when you're struggling with anxiety or when you're trying to recover from anxiety, and that is to try and get rid of it. If you're trying to get rid of anxiety, that's only ever going to make it worse. As I've said before in previous videos, anxiety isn't something to get rid of because it's something that occurs naturally in our brains. It's something that we require as humans. It's anxiety that prevents us from stepping in front of a car or jumping off of cliffs or other dangerous behaviour. It is something that our ancestors used quite a lot in sort of caveman times because there was a lot more need for the fight and flight sort of system in your body. Unlike with drugs and alcohol, where you have to completely cut those things out of your life, anxiety is not something you can cut out of your life or your mind. It's something that you have to learn to live with and learn to manage, and just to get that balance back in place. It's really easy when you're struggling to think of anxiety as the enemy, to think of anxiety as a problem that needs to be solved, something wrong with you that needs to be fixed. But really, all anxiety is, and I'm talking about anxiety disorders here, is where the naturally occurring anxiety and adrenaline and fight and flight response within your body has got out of kilter and unbalanced, and all we really need to do is just try and bring it back and get it a bit more balanced again. What we don't need to do is try to eliminate it. By its very nature, the cycle of anxiety kind of goes like this. That rush of adrenaline comes, and if you've got an anxiety disorder, then that adrenaline rush is, not required. There's nothing, there's no life or death situation where it's needed. The rush of adrenaline comes, and our instinct is to either fight against it or run away from it. But the more we do that, the more we're telling our brains, actually there is a problem, there is something to fear, and the anxiety will just keep coming, and that cycle of adrenaline and fear and more adrenaline and more fear will just continue until we try to break it. I just want to say as well, it's completely natural to want to get rid of anxiety. It's completely natural to want to avoid doing anything that causes you to have those symptoms, because it is such an unpleasant feeling. There's just no way around that. Anxiety symptoms, both physical and emotional, so whether that be breathlessness and panic attacks and diarrhea, or whether that be intrusive thoughts or depression or other emotional aspects of anxiety, either way, they are not pleasant, they are not easy to live with, they are not easy to function alongside. So it is totally natural to want to get rid of that, and that problem can keep us in the cycle for way longer than necessary and can make it worse and worse. So what do we do instead? The key is you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That phrase, among others, really helped me. Essentially what I'm saying is we need to let anxiety in, we need to go towards it, we need to get alongside it, we need to befriend it, we need to stop the fear and stop the worry and actually accept the anxiety and accept that state that we're currently in. When we do this, when we go towards anxiety, or when we breathe into ourselves and allow ourselves to just sit with that uncomfortable feeling, we're actually reassuring our brain and telling ourselves that there isn't any danger, there isn't any need to have adrenaline running around your system, and this can help to alleviate it, and eventually it can get that balance back so that you're feeling back to yourself again. So how do we do this? Obviously when you're in the midst of a very bad spell of an anxiety disorder or clinical anxiety, it's really hard to think rationally, and it's really difficult to try to take any action really. So it's not going to be as simple as going, okay, right, well I just need to let it in and get comfortable with it, because your anxious brain is going to rally against that a little bit. So initially, when we start this technique, we need quite a few tools in our tool belt to enable us to get a hold on the feeling and to counter it. What I used quite a lot was visualization and breathing techniques. So every time I would feel that wave of anxiety coming over me, which at the time I was feeling every few moments, instead of tensing up and physically sort of pulling away from it or removing myself from whatever situation I was in, I instead took a huge deep breath and imagined myself breathing that anxiety into me and sitting with it. I would also visualise the anxiety. So one of my therapists explained, like I just said earlier on in the video, that anxiety isn't the enemy, it is just a part of ourselves. So I kind of used that and ran with it, and every time I would get those waves and waves of anxiety, I would physically imagine a version of myself, kind of a darker, spikier, less pleasant version of myself, and that they were knocking on my door, and instead of slamming the door or keeping it locked or running away to another room, I would go to that door, open the door and say, "Oh, okay, you again. Alright, I don't really need you right now, but why don't you come on in and take a seat?" And I would then continue with whatever task I was doing without engaging with that anxiety. And believe you me, I'm not trying to say this is easy. During those really early acute stages, I was literally having to invite anxiety in and do all that visualization many times an hour and many times a day. But eventually I was able to let go of the visualization part and just focus a little bit on the breathing, or I would actually find I understood so well after a lot of practice what I was doing in my mind that it became a lot easier to do. So every time I would feel that rush of panic, that unpleasant feeling, maybe a horrible intrusive thought, I would just let it in. I would let it sit there without engagement, without analysing why you feel that way, what that physical symptom might be, because it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what symptom it is, it doesn't matter what thought it is, it doesn't matter what physical symptom it is. It is still the same thing. It is all anxiety, and it all comes under that umbrella, and it should all be treated with the same, which is like to invite it in, to sit with it, to get comfortable with it, to essentially to know it's not going to hurt you. That's the most important thing. And I just want to reiterate again what I'm saying about not engaging with it. So whatever symptom it is, don't analyse it, don't Google it, don't try and figure out why you feel this way. It just is what it is. It's just anxiety, and anxiety can manifest itself in so many different ways in our minds and bodies. But whatever way it's manifesting itself, just let it be there. Just let it be there without engagement, breathing deeply, carrying on with whatever task you have in front of you, and just let it exist, and eventually it will drift away. But I promise this technique works, and as far as I'm aware, it's the only technique that works. Lots of people try lots of distraction techniques, lots of medication, but to me, all of those things are just other ways of trying to get rid of anxiety, trying to fight anxiety, which is the opposite of what we need to do. We need to get comfortable with it, we need to get that balance back in check. As I said, it does take practice, and there's also various pitfalls that can bestow you while you're during this recovery. For example, I would think I was doing quite well. I would be handling the anxiety, I would have been doing this technique for a while, and then suddenly I would feel overwhelmed, and it would keep coming and keep coming, and I'd think to myself, I don't understand, I'm doing it right, I'm letting it in, so why is it feeling worse rather than better? And then when I got used to it and analysed it a little bit more, I'd realised actually I'm not letting it in. Either I was feeling frightened, or more often I was feeling angry or frustrated, and all of those things are just you pushing it away. They are not you truly letting the anxiety in and sitting with it. So really the reminders are, anxiety cannot kill you, panic attacks cannot kill you, and they can't even really harm you in any sort of physical permanent way. Importantly, anxiety cannot stop you from doing anything. I remember that feeling well, of being completely frozen and being unable to even cook a meal or put a load of washing on, let alone take care of my son or go to work. But that is just the anxiety talking, that is not reality. Anxiety and panicky feelings cannot stop you doing anything. They might be distracting, yes, but if you can find a way to focus and be present on a task, there's nothing that can stop you from doing. Thirdly, as I say, make sure you treat all symptoms the same, no matter what physical symptom or emotional symptom you're going through. Don't bother to Google it, don't bother to engage with it, just see it as all anxiety and it should be treated the same way, letting it in, sitting with it, not fighting it. So give up the fight. That's basically what I'm saying. Let anxiety in, go towards anxiety, egg it on. If you feel that panic coming on, just say, come on then, come on then. And it's actually impossible for you to panic if you are saying that to the anxiety. Let it in, sit with it, get comfortable with it, let it become your friend. Realise that it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to permanently damage you. It is just anxiety out of balance and you can put it back in check. I've written several blog posts about this topic, which I will link down below, including a free printable, which is affirmations you can use. So some of the things I've already talked about, letting it in, sitting with it, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, etc. I've created a free printable of affirmations that you can cut up and put around your house as little reminders to help you during those times when you do sort of slip back into your old ways. If you want more content about anxiety, mental health, emotional well-being and being a parent alongside all of that, please subscribe to our channel and we'll see you next time. Take care, bye!